Yo, what's up? Oh, dang, clear my throat. Oh my goodness. Yo, what's up, man? Welcome to another episode of Yah'm Saying Podcast. It's your boy Tay, and I'm here with a special guest. Special guest. She's been on before, but appreciate Gabby coming on. We're gonna talk tonight about Woman King. So spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert. If you haven't seen it, then don't watch this until you've seen it. It is a great movie, and I think it has a lot of great themes from the past and that are in the present as well. And so we're gonna chop it up about that. What's going on, Gab?
Hey, how are y'all?
Man, we're doing good. We're doing good. We're doing good. So we're gonna get into it. So what was your take on the Woman King?
Um, well, I didn't take it from a historical standpoint,
Hmm.
as much as it was my friends and I when we discussed it, it was it just kind of was a visual illustration on what it was like to be a black woman,
Hmm.
right? Where you have to make these choices on whether you're going to be strong or if you're going to be beautiful,
Hmm.
and so that's really actually one of the things that we talked about, right? If you're going to be independent or coupled, or like what are you going to choose, and that you have to choose. You don't get to really do both. Talked
Right.
about, right? If you're going to be
Oh.
independent or coupled, or like what are you going to? But other than that, and then they had like so many different. It had so many different layers, right?
Hmm.
Where it was the interpersonal,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
It was the family dynamic,
Hmm.
um, and focusing on how families throw out young girls who are strong, right? They're not
Right.
protected. Um, it was the interpersonal between black men and black women, the oddness of, um, as we spoke about, like capitalism
Hmm.
and blackness. It was just really interesting, like just multi-layered, um, like a Venn diagram, basically, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. I think that the point of the movie was the dialogue, right? I think within the dialogue, if you're not paying attention, you'll miss a lot of the historical reference, and I think that that's how they did the movie, which was great, right? Because I think that it told the history of how African tribes participated in the slave trade. You know what I'm saying? And the slave trade
Hmm.
was capitalism. But I think that there was a lot of symbology that was in there that if you're not paying attention to it, you'll miss it. You know what I'm saying? So the dynamic with like you're saying, women in society, particularly what would become known later as black women, in society, and women just in general in those patriarchal societies where men decide, how people will interact with each other, you know what I'm saying, or how the power structure is, you know what I'm
Mm.
saying. And within that, you also had the intersectionality of how women fit into that, right? Because you did have the king, and he had his harem, but one woman spoke for all the women, you know what I'm saying, and her power, and how she gained power and everything like that. And in present day, there is some of that, where where black women don't support other black women, there's that. I think it's a myth, people kind of perpetuate that. But yeah, I mean, I enjoyed the movie, with a lot of the symbology. I think there was a scene where she went to go rescue her daughter, and when she turns back, she just sees the women, running in a row, right? But then when it turned out to the side, you had the general, who was a man, you know what I'm saying, that was behind the woman, and he was the only man, you know what I'm saying, there
Hmm.
to support, you know what I mean? So I thought that symbology was cool as well, you know, and everything that that it was telling, in the movie. Yep.
Yeah, I just think that um something that me and my girlfriends was talking about even now is that black women are fighting for the liberation of black people,
Mm,
while white men, I mean, while black men are fighting for white people.
Hmm.
And it was interesting because like most of my friends are high achieving black women um, in leadership in their jobs, and we all have the same experience that um, our most ardent detractors are black men,
Hmm.
right? So, in
Hmm.
a room full of people, the people that give us the most problem are always black men,
Hmm.
and it's very odd. It's an odd, it's an odd thing, right? That it's a small sample size, right? So let's say out of 20 women, we all had the same experience. And it's like, well, why is this happening? You
Hmm.
know,
Hmm. Hmm.
what's going on here?
What's the
you know,
driver of it, right? What's the driver of it, right? Yeah, yeah.
driver.
The root cause. Yeah. Hmm.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with jealousy.
Hmm.
Um, I also had this conversation a lot uh, where black men are not really looking for black liberation as much
Hmm.
as they're looking for their rightful place in the patriarchy,
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
which looks totally different, right?
Hmm.
Patriarchy and black liberation don't really go hand in hand.
No, not at all.
So no, not at all.
It just doesn't. I mean, that's what history shows, right? I mean, it just doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah, it really just doesn't. But um, it's interesting. I think the movie was interesting in that way of showing that even when you show a pathway, right, where it's like, okay, like maybe we had to do these things to get X, Y, and Z. But when she was showing him like the palm oil fields and all that,
Hmm.
like that was a legitimate way to capitalism, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
But it was rejected
Right.
in lieu of slavery, and so that was so groundbreaking for me because it's like she made this whole alternative economy, and it was like, oh yeah, that's nice.
Hmm.
Do this over here.
Yeah, yeah, and it's what we were talking about, like capitalism, right? I think capitalism is a root of all that jealousy, right? It's how to make money. You know what I'm saying? How they were like, hey, they're sitting in the council and they're like, hey, hold on, you talking about interrupting my money? You know what I'm saying? We need another money source because without that money source, where how am I going to maintain, right? How am I going to maintain what I have, right? How am I going to do this? You know what I'm saying? How are we going to do this? And you have to be able to see beyond what's in front of you. You know what I'm saying? And I think that what you're saying is correct because for a lot of black men, um, for some of us, especially some of us who constantly work around white men, we can't see beyond, what I'm saying, anything else, right? We're like, well, this is the only path that I have. You know what I mean? And so this is where I need to go in order to have comfortability, right? Where I need to
Yeah,
go to have, to make more money. You know what I mean? To make at the end of it is about making more money, and you don't want anybody else to make do. And it's like what I mean, like a lot of those old heads, right? I mean, it's like old heads you run into who don't want you to be educated. You know what I'm saying? They don't want you to leave. You know what I mean? Nah, nah, nah,
exactly.
nah. You don't want to do that, young blood. You know what I'm saying? Like you got to understand what this person is saying. They want you to be just like them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And
which
yeah.
I mean, that's triggering.
Hmm.
I've recently had an experience where I was surprised that um who I was triggering to someone I was close to, right? And
Hmm.
it's interesting because I think that a lot of times you don't even recognize it was a man. So
Hmm.
I don't think a lot about my place in the world in my private life,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So in my private life, when I'm with my family, I'm me, right? I'm just Gabby, like whatever. And with my family and close friends, I really feel like whatever I have is yours too, right? It's all of ours. I did it for us.
Hmm.
But then it it was kind of thrown back in my face, and it was like, no, I don't have this and I don't have that
Mm-hmm.
and you have this. And I'm like, wow, that was odd interaction. Like I didn't expect it, right? And
Right.
so I kind of let it play out, you know, to let the person get it out. But it was one of those situations where then I said, well, you know, 2 weeks ago we were still the same people.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
like I knew, maybe you didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
I don't I don't know what to tell you, you know. And
Right.
so I think that it's very interesting too because I think that a lot of times a lot of the rhetoric that I hear um a lot of the rhetoric that I hear from men, you know, that I know or that I manage or whatever, a lot of times it's white men want you up front so that they can emasculate
Mm-hmm.
black men.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think that that makes me so upset
Mm-hmm.
because it it's the equivalent of saying that I am a affirmative action hire, or
Mm-hmm.
it's in that vein, right? You're pretty for a
Right.
dark girl.
Mm.
Like it's in
Right.
backhanded
Backhanded
way.
comment, like back. Yeah. Yeah. You.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I have to tell people quickly, like, no, I'm not dope for a girl. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm dope for a human. And
Mm-hmm.
if you're not like me, you could be dope too.
Mm-hmm.
And so this isn't a situation this isn't a situation where um where you were the better choice, but I
Right.
was more palatable one. No, like that's not what's
Mm-hmm.
happening. Like you're mediocre and
Mm-hmm.
you're used to your mediocrity being okay because you have a penis.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't feel that way. So you know what I mean? Like I don't feel benevolent to, you know, I don't really care that much about it, especially
Mm-hmm.
in the work setting. And I thought about that because even though in the Warrior King, um, obviously she was a better governor, right?
Right. Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But having a vagina precluded her from being that.
Mm,
You know, it's
yeah.
like, you know, it's like, oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
it was something that struck me at the beginning of the movie was that he welcomed people to his home that stole his mother.
Mm. Yeah.
And that eh, that really resonated with me because I'm like, if you can't avenge your mother, how can you avenge the rest of your people? Like that, it's like
Mm-hmm.
you're never gonna do it, right? Like if somebody
Mm-hmm.
takes your mom and you're like, oh, hopefully we find her,
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
out of
Yeah.
here.
Nah, and the fast forward that Martin Luther King made this comment in his letter from the Birmingham jail, right? When he was talking about black people who made it to the middle class, right? And the reason they made it to the middle class, through education and money, but they are also closer to whiteness, right?
Hmm.
And they stopped caring about the masses of peoples. You know what I'm saying? Because it was like, well, I got mine. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So Martin Luther King made that same observation. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, well, you look, you stole my mom, but I mean, I got mine. I'm the prince right now. You
Exactly.
know what I'm
Like,
saying?
well, thank you for my treasure. Like,
Yeah,
get out.
exactly. Like you traded treasures for culture and tradition. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And that became more valuable, and really it's one of those things where Dr. Claude Anderson talked about that building a black economy. You know what I'm saying? You can't build a black economy if black people don't see themselves as positive, right? You don't see each other positive, one man woman, whatever, man woman, man woman woman. If you don't see each other as positive, then or in positive light, then you can't build an economy. You're right. You
Hmm.
can't build an economy. You're always
Yeah, because
going.
it's based on trust, right? Like,
Hmm.
eco- economies and societies are based on trust.
Hmm.
Because money is worthless, actually, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
It's nothing. It's a belief system that something is valuable, not that it actually is valuable.
Hmm. Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah. That's true though. That's true. I tell that to people
yeah,
all the time, man. Like money is not. Money is not real, man. It's just
No,
not.
money's a joke, right? Like
Money is
it,
not.
it's a joke that everybody's in on, but it's
Yeah, 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 yeah. That is so true. But you see that in the Woman King, right? Like, especially at the end where towards the end where she her friend died or dies, and one of the main characters and the black dude that's there or the
Mhm.
African dude. I think he was supposed to be a representation of the Moors, because of
Oh, okay, yeah.
yeah because of his dress. Yeah, because of his dress. Sorry about that, guys. Um, because of his dress, and they talk about the horses and things of that nature. But yeah, he was. She's there crying, and he's like, "I give you $100, for it."
Exactly. Like I don't
Yeah,
care.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I
So,
also just feel like even to to two things that were poignant to me was even the strongest woman was still victim of sexual violence, right?
hmm
And that was interesting to me because black women experience sexual violence way more often than
hmm
any other women, right? Black American women. I
right.
don't know what the statistics are for the rest of the diaspora. Um, and when people when people then do the trope of angry black woman, I no longer reject that.
hmm
Right? I used to, right? Like, no, don't be angry.
hmm
And then I'm like, no, that's gaslighting. I'm mad as fuck. You see
hmm
what I'm saying? Like, and rightfully so. And so it's like you're not mad about any of these things happening to us as a community. Like, like it elicits no response from you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so I'm like, what kind of social path are you? Because that's really what's going on, right? So if you're not angry, then you probably have some kind of mental illness. I don't have a mental illness because I'm feeling these feelings. You have a mental illness because you're not.
hmm
And it's I think that's really interesting. But that dynamic was interesting to me, and also how she didn't believe in anything, right?
hmm
And I think there was a line that I really tucked in my pocket,
hmm
which was just because you don't believe in something doesn't mean it's not true.
hmm hmm
And I'm like, right now there's like a whole renaissance within black women to return back to like Yoruba
hmm
cultural traditions and
Yeah.
religion, right?
Right, 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 right. You're seeing that
And
exodus for just black people in general, leaving
black people in
in,
general,
in the
yes, but
church.
right now the black church is fighting against that, right? So
Yep.
the black church is because the because black women are upheld the black church, right?
Yep. hmm
And the black church was actually a lot of the perpetrators of our misery, right?
hmm
Within patriarchal structure.
hmm
And I thought about that, like the play on that in The Woman King, where Christianity versus traditional religion. And there was like a scene at the beginning where I felt very Pocahontas, right? When he was
hmm
like, that. And I was like, oh gosh, right? Like, goodness. But she left the cross, right?
Right, right.
And I was like, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And that was part of the symbolism that I was talking about. Like that was symbology, right? Like a rejection of like what is this? What's this around your neck?
Exactly.
Yeah, what is this? What was that supposed to
Yeah.
mean?
Well,
Yeah.
you accepted the religion of your oppressors.
As he was there talking about, his mom being the homie and
Exactly.
things and things of
Yeah.
that nature and returning, to his birthplace, right? Again, the
Hmm.
symbology, right? The symbology of the people outside of the diaspora coming back home, right? And also how are you going to participate, right? How are you going to create a liberation? You know what I'm saying? Especially if you're a
Yeah.
black man,
Exactly.
you know what I'm saying? But yeah, man, I'm gonna introduce my man Calvin, who joined the conversation from Objectively Aggressive podcast. Check him out. I appreciate you, brother, for finding time to join in on the convo, brother. What's going on? Can you hear?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. I can hear you. Yep, you good?
Good, good. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you, man. But we
Thanks
here
for
talking
having
about
me.
the woman.
I got a
Yeah,
feedback.
yeah, man. Oh, it's kind of feedback. It's a little delay.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Anyways, I'll let it
Hmm.
ride. So, hey, so I haven't heard, let me stop. Go ahead.
Hmm.
You just ride because it's the
Okay.
feedback. I'm gonna come back in.
Okay. All right. If anything, just like log out and then log back in, though, bro. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, but I think that that there was a lot, and I love symbology, symbolism. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Because it is it is because I think that today's society we focus so much on the surface level stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like we
Mm-hmm.
can't we really don't try to even address root cause issues. You know what I'm saying? And and that other scene where he was like where he was said, oh yeah, here's a I'll give you $100 for it, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It went back to me, the conversation about value, you know what I mean? People talking about high value and low value and all this other stuff, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But again, all that stuff is connected to consumerism, you know what I'm saying? How can you help me consume, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think that that was the conversation, you know what I'm saying? Especially when when they had the conversation about changing the economics from people to palm oil, right? Well, how's that going to help me consume? Because I can get nice clothes. I get gold. Yeah, well, they had gold on the continent, and that was part of the reason why the Portuguese was there. And again, the symbolism too was the Portuguese. That was very deliberate to get people to understand that it was the Portuguese who started the slave trade. And so that's why that dude was, his mom was the homie, because it was the
Yeah.
Portuguese. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, so yeah, the whole consumerism, is tied to relationships. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
And
yeah, I think that I don't think that people really think about consumerism
hmm
and that capitalism is based on labor, right? So
hmm
there has to be a human component, and the human component is the exploitation. So Adam Smith, like, the founder, the father of uh, econ, right?
hmm
Where the only part you control in capitalism is labor.
hmm
So you don't control natural resources. You don't control that cost. The only cost that you can control in capitalism is labor, and so you have to squeeze the profit out of people. That's what happens, right? And
uh-huh.
I think that when people lose track of that, right, it happens over and over. So if you have a raw good and you need to extract it, the raw good is going to cost what it costs, right?
Right.
If it's two trees, it's going to cost two trees.
hmm
But how do I get someone to cut it down the cheapest?
The cheapest, yeah.
Right?
Right.
And then and then if you can get your labor cost to
So,
zero,
can you get me? Can you hear me?
Oh my, yeah, I
hmm
can hear you. Yeah, we can hear you.
is it still there?
Yeah, yeah. I think he's just having
Y'all are
feedback.
hitting on some great things,
Yeah,
man. Like,
yeah. Hold on, hold on.
so
I'm gonna let
I
Gabby
talk
finish her point.
about Christianity, capitalism. Bro, I can't do this shit no more.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna send you a different link and then log into that and then use the different one.
Let me get out.
Yeah, yeah. He's having some issues there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's like, slavery is important to capitalism because it drives labor cost to zero, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if we really think about it, right, where you think about um, a country that is just starting out versus countries that were um, established, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you have a historical difference in time. And so people are trying to catch up. So how do you catch up though, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have to get labor to zero. That's it, right? Like
Yeah.
it's if you want to compete in capitalism, and
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons why after slavery that is children, right?
Yep.
Because children are also zero. So as we continue on, right, and we talk about even now when we talk about wages, living wages, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The point of capitalism is not a living wage. That's literally the opposite of capitalism.
Right.
Right?
Right. Right.
It's like we're having this conversation, except for they are diametrically opposed, right? So there cannot you cannot have a living wage because I need a huge bottom that is so consumed with production that they can't look up, right? That's how capitalism works.
Mm.
Because if people have
Right.
free time creates revolution. I think that people don't really connect those two things. That's what happens, right? That's what happens
Right.
when they don't want right now. There's a huge issue with there not being enough jobs for you have to have men between the ages of 16 and 35 working,
Mm-hmm.
because if they have too much idle time it creates revolution. That's what happens, right? That's how
Mm-hmm.
revolution. But you need to have them working just enough that they can survive, not enough that
Right.
they can have free time, because then you have the same problem that you had before.
Right, exactly. And with that, in modern times, you just see the push for lower education, right? Because you also have
Hmm.
that same thing. If you have people who get educated, right, and then they can also spark revolution as well. We see it with Leninism and Marxism, and the Enlightenment period where they had a revolution after revolution after revolution. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
And that was one thing that the so-called founders, they were like, oh, no, 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 we're not going to have an educated populace, right? And that's why they put in the Constitution that the people who could vote was they could not you had to be educated and you had to own land or have wealth.
Hmm.
That was very deliberate. That was very deliberate. You know what I'm saying? And that's what
But
capitalism requires.
it's just so odd, because I think a lot of times, as the quote unquote um orphan children, right?
Hmm.
Being part of being foundationally black, right? If you're Black American, you romanticize your absent parent, right? That
Mm,
like I really think about Black Americans in terms of being orphans,
mm,
and you make up these stories in your head about this Shangri-La, right,
hmm.
of Africa, and it was so amazing. And if these mean people over here didn't just take us, and the story is not as cut and dry as
It's not.
that.
It's not. Yeah.
It's not as cut and dry as that, because human beings at their core are motivated by some of the same things, right?
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
And so you can't discount that as a people, number one, but you also can't romanticize what would have been if it didn't happen,
Mm, yeah.
right? There is no telling. You could have still been from a slave family.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That's true.
Like you still could have been. And I think that sometimes we forget that, right? And it wouldn't have been chattel slavery, which has its own issues,
Hmm.
right? But it definitely is not as everybody's like, I would have been a queen, and
Yeah. Like nah, man. Nah. No. 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 You wouldn't. I like. Hey. 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 That king and queen stuff.
Yes.
I get it. Yo. Yeah. You good now, bro?
Okay. There could have been multiple things going on with that one. Like that Facebook was throwing some stuff off. Either way, I moved. Um,
It's all
man,
good,
y'all
bro.
hit on some great things. Nice to meet you. Um, hey, good Lord. So, so capitalism is king and Christianity is its God.
Mm. Yeah.
And
In
so,
many ways in America, that would
right,
be
No,
and so
I think globally.
you think globally?
Oh, I think Judeo Christianity is rooted to me,
Mm.
and I think historically speaking, in what's the word that they use now? Prosperity ministry.
Oh
Prosperity
yeah,
ministry is
oh,
prosperity.
not
prosperity ministry.
yeah,
Hmm.
it's not new. So the exceptionalism that Judeo Christians feel for themselves is the root of capitalism, though, right? Is I
Ooh.
deserve more of this pie than anyone else because the God I serve wants me to have more of this pie.
Mm.
Can we get an example of what this prosperity ministry is? You got a name? You want a name drop?
Well, I mean, okay, so I it immediately comes to mind like the Joel Osteens of the world,
Mhm.
One.
the Creflo Dollars, uh,
Ooh, two.
T.D. Jakes, and it's
Mhm.
not that I don't agree with that. The Almighty wants you to be prosperous, but I don't know if I feel as though prosperity is about financial gain.
Mhm.
I
So
totally I I'm gonna have to jump in and say I totally disagree with what they're doing because they rip off old ladies. They're looking when you fishing. So the thing about fishing is that you have to like not be scared of rejection and like just totally be a sociopath and like not caring by throwing your bait out there. Like Joe Osteen doesn't care that we judge him about what he does. He will rip all those old ladies off who are sitting there just watching the TV and get paid. And like Joel Osteen needs a new jet engine to go preach the gospel across, and they will send that religiously. And he does not, they do not care what we think. You know that, right? That's the
yes,
greatest thing about Christianity and the level of just treachery that goes along with it to say I'm doing this because God said it, and people just have to leave you alone.
Mm.
yeah, for
Yeah.
That's
sure though.
powerful.
Yeah, I think that most prosperity ministry leaders are sociopathic, right?
Mm.
Um, and narcissistic at best, but probably sociopathic, right? Because in order to consume more than you need,
Mhm.
there has to be a lack of empathy, and that lack of empathy then puts you on the course of being a sociopath or a narcissist or whatever, right? Because you can't empathize, but you mimic empathy because human beings need to see you empathize in order to feel comfortable.
Right.
And so I think that's the weird part, right? Where it's like it's fake concern.
Yeah.
And when Joel Osteen and TD Jakes too, I when they let people sleep outside of the church, like they would not open their church doors to let um I think it was like hurricane refugees or something into the church in Houston. That tell you everything you need to know, right?
That's it.
Because you didn't open your doors for the people in need when that community has supported you and sold money into you and all that. So I do think that I do think that Christianity, Judeo Christian, because I think it's Jews, I think it's Muslims, I think it's Christians, um, are rooted in that because they're religions that they look they promise people a better afterlife, and they don't really consider what the current life is. Like
Mhm.
they're like future fakers, which is narcissistic, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah. And I
Man,
think
man, so
in the Woman King, you kind of see the symbology, and I'll get back to you, Calvin. You see the
go ahead.
symbology of a rejection, of it when he
hmm
hands her the cross, right? That's kind of symbolizing, Europeans coming to Africa to hand religion to the African peoples. You know what I'm saying? And she drops it, right? Like it's
hmm
the symbology of it. You know what I'm saying? Of that. I
It
just wanted
really
to
is.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
No,
yeah.
I
Yeah,
think it
yeah.
really is, though. I think that in order to be whole, though, you have to reject the
Hmm.
religion of your oppressor. So
Right.
it, it because the religion of your oppressor is never going to have you as the winner, right?
And that was yeah, and that was the other symbolize, the symbology. Like, hold on, how can you say you delivered it? This person is your God to deliver people, and you are capturing and enslaving. Like
Hmm.
it doesn't add up. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't add up. But go ahead,
Yeah.
brother Cal. I'm sorry, guy.
Oh no, I was saying, and the other guy, I can't think of his name right now.
Hmm.
Um, he seemed to me to be very Muslim, right? So
Hmm.
it wasn't.
Right. Hmm.
It literally wasn't. Oh, you know, Islam is good and Christianity is bad. I think it was a rejection of everything that wasn't um originating from them,
From
right?
them,
And that's
right.
their power.
Right, right, right. And that was one thing I picked up on. I meant to do some research to see if that was the actual case, but by how they dressed, I was assuming like, oh yeah, they're Muslim. You know what I'm saying? They're
Yeah,
or what we
they
would
look.
have called Moors. They would have been, or
Yeah,
what
I
they would
mean,
have called Moors.
yeah,
Hmm.
they looked the part.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Go ahead, brother Cal.
Oh, so yeah. So talking about the oppressors. So one of the things I was talking about with a colleague of mine, Dr. Ham, which she has a whole professional name, but I call him Dr. Ham.
Hmm.
And it's about how if okay, so I just got off the phone with my dad and we got into Jesus and all this type of stuff because we understand the principle. But it's like when you are praying to a God that the people who are oppressing you pray to, and they seem to be of benefit and they've used it to oppress you. I haven't seen the woman king yet, and it's coming. We talked about that.
Yeah,
But the principles are there. It's like they literally gave this to us and said, hey, be Jesus like.
mm,
I was watching Malcolm and he was like, hey, no, don't be a lawyer. Do something good with your hands, be a carpenter. Jesus was a carpenter.
mm.
And I was having a conversation with Dr. Ham, and it was almost like isn't Jesus like the perfect character to sell to people to like go be altruistic and go die for your purpose and all these things, just like with Muslims, like your 77 virgins, all this stuff lives on the other side while the people get to collect here. And it's like you'll get yours on the other side, just do what you need to here to get it on the other side while we get it here. Isn't that like the most genius plan?
For sure, but I also think it's the version of Jesus, right? Because I think that like um even biblically, Jesus uh wasn't some docile person, right? And but the version that is sold is the docile one, not the I'm
Correct.
turning tables over,
Right,
right?
Correct.
right.
Um, it also th- there also is like a weirdness too um when you look at Islam, it's the docile version, and all the way to when you look at a Martin Luther King, right? The docile version of Martin Luther King is sold to people. Like Martin, it wasn't Martin versus Malcolm
Right.
in the standpoint of one is radical and the other one wasn't. No, Malcolm was radical as hell, right?
Hmm.
And I don't think that he was, you know, his nonviolence wasn't non-agitating.
Hmm.
So it's the narrative though is to pick the more docile version of someone, water it down until it becomes nothing,
Hmm. Hmm.
and then lift it up to be venerated, right? Like, oh, you should be like that.
Right.
And it's like, I always tell people there's like a meme. It's like, what would Jesus do when somebody asks you that? Don't forget that Jesus would flip over a
Flip
table
over a
and whip you
table.
with a yeah, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
whip you with a flog you with a whip
Hmm.
or whatever.
But
And so,
mm.
go ahead.
No, no, no. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I'm just saying, like, don't you know? I I personally don't think that Christianity is for Black people,
No.
but but if you are going to subscribe to Christianity, please don't forget that there's another side, right? Like,
Right.
if you
Right.
if you're going to choose it, which is cool, just don't forget that like Jesus isn't, you know, just feeding people with fish and stuff, right? He's
Mhm.
walling.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, and I think
Mm.
that's a good point. And I always tell people that because people do the same thing with Booker T. Washington and Frederick Douglass or W.B. Du
Hmm.
Bois, and I always tell people like they both was right. You know what I'm saying? Like Malcolm and Martin, they both were right. You know what I'm saying? And with Malcolm, we didn't get to see the best version of Malcolm after he comes back from Mecca. And I always try to tell people that we didn't get to see the best version of Malcolm because he was slain. You know what I'm saying? And people, they'll try to say this thing about Martin Luther King wanted integration when really he wanted a black economy. And he talked about reparations all the time. People just need to go research Operation Breadbasket. When Martin Luther King said out of his mouth, like, look, we can't shop in these places that don't hire black people. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
And he was talking things like that. But in the Woman King, you also see that dynamic as well. You know what I'm saying? To where like part of me, I understood where the king was coming from. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, I have a kingdom to run. I have we can't just, switch at the drop of a dime to, this other economy. You know what I mean? We need something else. You know what I'm saying? And what the king was saying and what Viola's character was saying, they both was right. It was just how they went about it. You know what I'm saying? It just one was about that action. Viola Davis' character was just about that action.
Well, I think that too, though, right?
Hmm.
To the point of that, though, is
Hmm.
that in my viewpoint, when you're dealing with someone who wants your demise, when you negotiate, my degree is in espionage, right?
Hmm.
You cannot negotiate with terrorists. There is no negotiation,
That's true.
right?
That's true.
And so, what you think is a common, you guys reach some kind of settlement, you did not. Terrorists are anacondas,
Hmm.
right? And so the snake is squeezing you even when you don't feel it.
Hmm.
And that to me was like, you thought that you bought yourself some time, or you thought that you guys had a peaceful coexistence. You can't have peaceful coexistence with someone who wants your demise. Like, you really just can't, right?
Right. Right. Hmm. Hmm.
And so when he was kind of, because it's not as though he was saying, hey, you work on that while I work on this. And by the time you finish that, I'll be done this. That's
Hmm.
not what was
Hmm.
happening.
Right. 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 I'm tracking. Yeah. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like he wasn't at all trying to prepare. It was dismissive. It was though he could wield some kind of influence that would stop the interest of the people who wanted to capture him, right?
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
And he also enjoyed being used as a figurehead.
Hmm. Hmm. Right. 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 Because he kept bringing up his brother. My
Yeah,
brother,
he
my
loved
brother,
it.
my brother, my brother. Yeah. 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 And yeah. 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 And again, that was. I think a lot of the movie is about the dialogue. You have to pay attention to the dialogue. You know what I mean? Not so much what's going on around it, because it really is an action movie. But you have to pay attention to the dialogue in that movie, because the dialogue it explains all of the what's really going on in the dynamic of that. If you're gonna watch Woman King, but yeah, yeah, that's
Yeah,
good
it's really,
points. Yeah, it was.
yeah.
I think that was the best part of the movie was the dialogue. The dialogue brought you in, like it really did. At least to me, it brought me in. It brought
Where was
brought
it based? Where was it based?
so it's based in the kingdom Dahomey, which was former Mali, if you know about that region,
Okay.
because 80% of what people don't know, the majority of us who are descendants of slaves, we are of and they kind of mention this, but we are Yoruba or Yoruba, Igbo, no, Igbo is the language, sorry. Yoruba or Mali. So those are the two tribes that we come from. The 80% of us who are in America, and so that's where it takes place. It takes place on the west coast, I'm sorry, northeast side. I'm terrible with directions. The west coast of Africa, right there, because why it takes place on the west coast of Africa is because there's a current that goes
Yeah,
from the west coast of Africa, right, and it goes to South America, and
yeah, yeah.
that's how
That's
they
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 call
travel.
that the transatlantic.
Right, and it does this circle thing. It does
Yeah.
this circle, and that's how they.
All you
But
gotta do is jump
the
on it, and it
Europeans
just
didn't know. Yeah,
automatically just.
yeah. Europeans didn't know that. They kind of like lucked into that. But that's where it takes place, and it takes place in 1823, when a lot of you had a lot of around that time you did have another thing that we aren't taught that we and it's deliberate too. We aren't taught that abolition begins on the continent of Africa. This is why you start seeing all these other countries around the around the mid 1700s start to draft laws to end slavery, because abolition begins on the continent of Africa once these African tribes start hearing about what's going on in the Americas, and it kind of goes into that, but again, it's in the dialogue. It's in the dialogue. You know, it's an edutainment movie. Edutainment is edutainment.
Edutainment. How long
Yeah,
was it?
about 2 hours.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's like 2 hours, 2 hours 15 minutes. But I mean, but it's it's good. I think it's a double watch. We're actually talking about going to go see it again here this
Yeah, for
weekend.
sure. I think
Yeah.
that because I think it's multi-layered, and I
Hmm.
think that the second time you watch it, you'll get something totally different. But I think too that it's sparking dialogue for Black women, especially like I said before, that like it's the feelings we have, and we couldn't really. We thought we were having these siloed conversations, but to see it depicted, right? Like, oh wait, like
Hmm.
we're not we're having this as a monolith, right? Like we're having these feelings as a monolith because it's being depicted um for entertainment. And entertainment is really a reflection of real life, right? Like it's based on these
Yeah.
things. And it's like I don't know where we are as Black people, right, in general, but educated Black women are divesting from the sold idea of Black liberation led by a Black family, and are more akin to the Wonder Woman. I can't ever say it, but like the Thessalic or whatever, like the island of just women, right? And
Hmm.
women, where obviously there has to be some men somewhere because they get pregnant, right?
Yeah.
And 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 it's like, well, how how does that impact um our community, right? Like what happens in our communities when Black women are divested from the idea that we've been sold? And I think as we divest from church, we divest from that idea because church needs us to believe in it, right? They need us to believe in this idea of um, a Black man savior,
Mm,
right?
mhm, mhm,
And that
mhm,
Black man savior is going to be our connection to this white male savior. And
mhm,
it's very it's very like odd, right? When you really think about it, you're like, wow,
mhm,
interesting.
mhm, mhm.
And Black women have been the heart of the church, right? Like we really believe it and we were down with it. But as we leave the church, our thought processes are becoming a little bit different. And now there's all these articles that like men are lonely and gonna die alone and what's gonna happen. Men can't figure it out. And
Damn.
it's like, wow, all this time, people are like women need marriage, but I think men need marriage,
Mhm,
Oh,
mhm,
yeah.
um men
mhm.
benefit from marriage.
Benefit from it.
And
Yeah,
so
exactly,
yeah,
exactly.
and
Mhm,
and so like women are now seeing that, right? Where
mhm,
it's like, wait a minute, um I was sold this pack of lies. And I think that was kind of shown in the movie as well, right? Because the women who use their beauty as the power
mhm.
were basically just slaves themselves.
Right. Yeah.
Mm,
Mhm. Yeah, and that was shown in
mm.
the movie too. I was showing,
Yeah,
yeah.
right. Like they,
Wow.
and it's like you're living this, and you become petty, right? So
Mm-hmm.
your concerns are very petty
The
and
concern, yeah,
Yeah.
small.
exactly.
Yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
small, and then you
Small, and
like,
it
oh,
becomes, and it becomes about power, right? And power dynamics, and things of that nature. Like, hold on, that pie theory, right? Thinking that, like, no, hold on, this pie is gonna get smaller if you take a piece from it, right? you know
Wow.
if
exactly.
you become the woman king, like, hold on, where does that leave me? Like, it leaves you in the same
Or
position. What the-
you know what? Or not even if I
Mhm,
can't use my sexuality
mhm,
as um a
A
way
weapon.
to wield power,
mhm.
what do I use?
What do I use? Right.
Right. And
And,
because I mean sexuality is powerful, right? I don't think that, so that the tangential nature of being close to your oppressor, right? So that
mhm.
there's like this, me and you talk about
Stockholm
this all the time
syndrome.
about, yeah, how white women want white men to stay in power because their their sexual power is tangential, right?
Mhm, mhm.
But then I think that
Mhm.
black women, a certain kind of black woman, also want black men to be in power because that's tangential to the limited power that we have as black people.
Yeah.
Oh.
And it's interesting when you watch those dynamics and then you see them play out,
Mhm,
right? And you're like, oh wow. And then to see it, in a cinema or whatever,
mhm.
but it's like she was she could have teamed up with her and said, look, let us both work toward getting this accomplished, right?
Right, right,
You
right.
got that part, I got this
I
part,
I
boom.
take this part. Boom. We'll work it out. We'll work it
Exactly.
out. Hmm, hmm.
Right? But that's not what happened. It's really interesting as because there's different kind of women all the time, and it's like, okay, you can be both, right? You can be pretty and you can be
And you
serious.
could be serious. You could be strong. You could be and you know
And
Yeah, and you live an and life,
you can live a and
and
life.
and
There's and. Yeah, I was watching this thing on Dr. Phil, and I get to you, Calvin. That was yeah, Gab. I know you're on the phone, but you can't see Calvin's face though when you speaking. This man is, he's like mind blown.
you
Like,
get it, man. Like she totally gets it.
yeah, but I was watching this thing on Dr. Phil, and they were talking about appropriation, and there was this professor saying that talking about intersectionality, like people are right. You are a woman, and you are black, and you are this, and you are that. So that's why appropriation can be wrong, because you're. But then these people who are again in the power structure, you know what I'm saying? They're like, oh no, 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 you can't. You can only be this one thing. You know what I'm saying? And that's probably our society. We put people in a box and stuff. But go ahead, brother Cal.
Oh man, so much to discuss. One of the things I was talking about, like in the church, was about how you never see men getting the Holy Ghost.
Mm.
Like you genuinely only see women get it, and from where we grew
Or,
up
or,
as
or
black
it's
women,
performed different. Yeah, I get what you're saying. I get what you're
you know
saying.
what I mean? Like the way they get it. But I had a conversation with my dad back in the day, and he was like, "Have you ever noticed the most loyal people in church are women?"
Hmm.
Hmm.
And he said, if you look at it, and I was peeping the game, but he said, if you look at it, he was like, women love Jesus because it's one man who is everything to them.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like women are looking for that savior. And I think that goes into, the conversation that we just had formerly about how it's like there's this thought that women need a savior.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, yeah,
and,
yeah.
it, and it's almost to the point where it's annoying, where there's this automatic expectation that a man is going to save a woman.
Mhm.
And hey,
Well, I also think though that like society needs that, right?
we do.
Because in order for you to save me, you have to have the power.
Power, right?
Right.
Mm. Right,
And
right. Yeah.
so it makes it de facto, right? Where it's like, in order for me to be saved, someone stronger than me has to save me. And so he has to be stronger than me
The
so
damsel
that
in
he can then
distress, right?
save.
We see this in movies and TV
Yeah.
shows. You know what I mean? Like, you know,
And
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 yeah.
I do think that's an interesting point about women being the only people, well, the people who are allowed to demonstrate getting the Holy Ghost, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I also think that harks back to African culture.
Mm-hmm.
When
Mm-hmm.
you get possessed, quote unquote, right? The conduit of spirituality is women,
It's women,
right?
right?
And I really think of the divine feminine, right? I really believe in the divine feminine and the divine feminine being the tie to God, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because women hold the portal between creation, right? So there like the spirit did not live before, right? The spirit is then formed in me and I give birth to the spirit, right? I give birth
Mm-hmm.
to this child. And so I think that that is the only place where women, especially Black women, are allowed to be divine and to be diviners, right? That is
Mm-hmm.
literally the only place where we're allowed to be full.
Mm-hmm.
And everywhere else, we're not allowed to do that. We're not allowed to have our spirituality be in direct connection to God. Anywhere else, we have to then find a man to be that, right? Like anywhere else, like any other time, you cannot have a direct pathway to God. But when you speak in tongues,
Mm-hmm.
you are allowed to say that God is using your voice by itself. And I think it's really an interesting concept because women don't feel empowered in that moment as much as they just feel like they're doing work, but they
Mm-hmm.
don't feel like they can do the work for themselves, right? If you can speak in tongues in church, you can speak in tongues at your house,
At your
right?
house, yeah, and anywhere, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Anywhere, right? If God
Mm-hmm.
is speaking through you, and I just, sometimes because obviously we were raised
Mm-hmm.
in a Christian family, but I think our grandmother was not caged by Christianity, to
Right,
be honest.
right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, I look, I totally agree with that. I
yeah.
totally agree with
So
that.
I think that we have a, we experience Christianity in a different
In a
way.
different way, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
if we were Muslim, Muslims have like a dark magic kind of Christianity. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, Islam.
Mm-hmm.
So do Jews. Uh, Christians don't call it that though, right?
Yeah. Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
Right. I guess Pentecostal would be the closest thing to it, where it's more rooted in uh, direct access to spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So yeah, I do
Mm-hmm.
think that's interesting. I would love to like. I'm going to see if there's more like conversation about that, about why Black women are allowed to speak in tongues
Speaking. Mm-hmm.
and to
Mm-hmm.
get the stage when they do it,
And
right?
get the
Like there's
Well,
stage,
much.
well,
yeah.
well.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanna, if I may, because I know we're getting close, man, and it's
Mm-hmm.
been great. There is another world where Black women were worshipped.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, we see a lot of this stuff in the Egyptian world and all that. So I'm not gonna sit up here and pretend to be, a scholar in that, but we know it existed, that we worship women a different way. And I think what you're speaking on right now is just, some sort of tie in to how religion has formed and sculpted, because religion has been taken from many different things like Sunday, sun god, like there's a lot of different things that go into that. And let's just be honest, like when it comes to women in general, like we obsess over women, other women obsess over women, men obsess over women. We don't do the same thing over men unless they are a hero and like come through, or he's like, oh, he has the physique of a great god or whatever. But we obsess over women, and I think Black women specifically get the most attention and is the most appropriated out of all of it. I mean, when you think about a gay man, Black or white, they're getting most of that, what appears to be effeminate behavior, I feel like, from a Black woman.
Mm-hmm.
Am I
Yeah,
tripping?
for sure. I think that that's one thing that Instagram has been amazing for, is for Black women to see in real time that we are the prototype
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Right. Yeah.
and that
Mm-hmm.
the things that we are creating, the language that we have amongst each other is envied, is copied, is repackaged, right? And I don't think that we saw it in real time. I think that it was every now and then. And the
I gotta
Kardashians
stop
have
you.
done
I
a
gotta
great
stop you. Hold on. Hold on. A controversial interruption. Controversial interruption. Controversial
job. Yes.
interruption.
Yeah, what up?
You say all of that, and I swear to you, black women get all of they swag from a gay black man. Oh, he's done. He's done. Put it down, because you know that's true.
Well, you know what? I think that I don't think so, right? So I think that gay black men study black women and repackage it back to black women.
In the way that
So
a man would like to see it.
Oh, hold on, but that's shown in the movies too. That's shown in the movie as well. I'm telling you, man, Woman King is great.
yeah, but you
Wait,
know what
like,
too? Woman King is
man,
so dope.
it's
But
dope.
so
It
one
is
of the
dope.
parents to bring the LGBT alphabet kids in, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of the parents, because we had a PTA fundraiser for the movie, right? So one of the parents was not happy that there was um, lesbianism insinuated,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, but black women have been lesbians too, right? Like,
Right.
it's like I don't know, like
Women
nothing.
being in the same vicinity as women is no different. Men being in the same vicinity as men. I mean, it's
It's
just
it's like I don't
it's
even
a
know
forward. Yeah,
like what the
going on
problem is
crazy
or
times.
whatever, and maybe because I'm in construction, I most of the black women I know in construction are lesbians, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and not like lipstick, not Women of Brewster Place lesbians, like,
Mm-hmm.
like, like they're lesbians,
Yeah.
and
Like, what else can you
and
use as a comparison? Where were you gonna go with that?
that I think that those women exist outside of the influence of the male gaze,
Mm.
and they create different um a different system, like it's a different ecosystem where gay men, because they're men,
Mm.
only exist for the male gaze. And so black women who also want to exist, who are, heterosexual, are like, whoa, these people really know what they want.
Mm.
What part of my conversation do they like the best? Bet. What part of my look do they like the best? Bet. What part, you see what I'm saying? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think that when you are a heterosexual woman, and the the nature of life is that you exist in order to be close to masculinity, in order to have some kind of power, and your femininity brings power, then gay men are gonna definitely be um they're gonna they're gonna have this weird living in the veil kind of thing, because they are, what do they call it, like in Indian culture, like the dual sex or whatever.
Mm.
And now it's like I know what they want, and I know, you know what I mean, like I know what they want because I want what they want, if that
Mm.
makes sense.
They're a mole. They're a mole in the male community. They're a mole in the male community to be able to give feedback to a woman for exactly what a man wants.
Yeah, for sure, because they are both, you know what I mean, it's like both, and I think that's interesting.
In the bed,
I think,
yeah, I'm sorry, Gab,
oh no, go
but
ahead.
but I think the movie like showed that, you know what I mean, how because there was a gay character in there in the movie, but I think that
Mhm.
it showed that, like, you know, when they having conversation, and that individual, you know, was like trying to get the female to understand how the male was thinking. You know what I mean? Like in that movie, I
For
can't.
sure.
I'm trying to remember the scene, but there was an interaction that they had. You know what I'm
But
saying?
that's what I was trying to say, that like if
Mm-hmm.
you can learn, I guess like a Trojan horse kind of situation,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where it's like, okay, well, how do I get close to them? How do I get them to do this? How do I get,
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
no matter what people think, um, gay men are men,
Mm-hmm.
and they are usually dating men. So
right.
like usually.
Yeah. And
Sometimes,
I think that was the conversation in the movie. I think that they were that's how the conversation went. I can't
yeah,
remember.
yeah.
Yeah,
I think so too.
I think that's how the
And you know,
conversation
it's fun.
went.
I live in Atlanta, so
Mm-hmm,
I
mm-hmm,
think I get a front center view of black male gayness.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And it's interesting. I think it's interesting to watch. I think that they also experience some of the same things as black women,
mm-hmm.
because the patriarchy doesn't stop because of your sexuality, right? It's not just like racism doesn't stop because of your sexuality, right? Because
Right.
within gay culture, there's a hierarchy in gay culture as well for
Mm-hmm.
color and race and whatever.
Yes, indeed.
So I just think that it permeates all facets of society. And I think that the movie really did bring that out, right?
Mm-hmm,
That no
mm-hmm.
matter who you were in this society, you were impacted by this weird hierarchy. And then
By the
at the bottom of
hierarchy.
that,
Right. Yeah. By the
yeah, it's
hierarchy.
capitalism, right?
Yeah, like that character that was gay, like I don't know if people didn't pick up on this, but the only reason that they could that character could exist in the palace, inside the palace as a male, he had to be castrated.
Yes.
that was a, that was the the purpose. And if you know anything about the Arab slave trade, this existed in the Arab slave trade when they had Africans who were part of their not community but part of the higher a part of the palace. They're part of the palace. Like, hey, you gonna be snipped because I don't need nobody. I don't need nobody. Coming up accidentally pregnant. You know what I'm saying? And
Exactly.
then we have wars and things of that nature. But but that power, that proximity came at the price of his manhood. You dig what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? And that's how for a lot of black men, with power today, it comes at the price of your manhood. You know what I'm saying? This is why we have black individuals like a Jason Whitlock, or we have a Larry Elder, or any other black person who are siding with bigots. You know what I'm saying? Siding with the actual suppressors and telling black people, talking about black on black crime and fatherlessness and all this other nonsense. You know what I'm saying? That they perpetuate. You know what I'm saying? That comes at the price of your manhood. You know,
Well,
and
what, I think that's interesting because I actually I disagree strongly,
hmm
because I think that it comes at the price of toxic masculinity, but I don't think that it actually comes at a price of your manhood.
hmm
when when I watch, right? Like, I watch people at work all the time, right? And it's like kowtowing to white people.
mm
I think to myself, no one asked you to shuck and jive.
mm
No one asked you to do that. You can literally just not.
yeah,
But you've been conditioned to believe that you have to be softer in order to get close.
survival in order to
Then
survive.
it's survival,
Yeah,
right?
survival.
But
Yeah,
but then you get butt hurt when you sacrifice all that and they still treat you like shit.
yeah.
So I
Well,
like it's it's like I'm thinking to myself, like, you did all that and you got nowhere,
hmm hmm
and no one asked you to do any of that, and you would have still had the same, outcome or whatever.
hmm
But then the flip side is that I watch grown black men be upset with me for being able to be my authentic self,
hmm hmm
right? And they think it's because I'm a woman.
hmm
I don't think it's because I'm a woman. And I think that a lot of it has to do with the fact that I am myself all the time.
Right.
And that comes at a cost. I'm not trying to act like it doesn't come at a cost,
hmm
right?
hmm hmm
It
hmm
comes at a cost, and I have to live a life that I know that I have to live a life financially that I can stand tall. And so I'm very, careful financially and that kind of thing. But they don't want to be careful financially, right? Because they want to mimic the oppressor. And you
hmm
can't mimic the oppressor and still be free. Like, you can't. You're gonna have to choose. So you sold your
yeah,
manhood long ago when you got that truck for $100,000. That's when you sold.
yeah,
It wasn't,
yeah, yeah.
it wasn't when you had to say yes, sir, boss. That's
Yeah.
not when it happened when you signed the papers. And I just be looking to myself like, I drive a modest car, I live in a modest house, I
Right,
don't
right, right.
whatever.
It comes to
But I'm
consumerism, man. Consumer. I always say, man, the
exactly that's what
problem,
I'm saying.
look, the root cause. I always say, problem in black community, black culture, and our economic mindset is consuming, man. It is consuming. Especially when we, and then next year is the 50th year of hip hop, and rap music. People, people really took people bragging and they put that stuff in action in real life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Buying
Yeah.
things that they can't afford, and things of that nature. Not understanding, you know what I mean? Not understanding, uh, uh, the impact of that, So,
Well,
and it's why my beliefs on reparations, right? Is like, look, I don't want reparations until we get economic education, man, because all the people gonna do is make Cadillac rich, or I mean Cadillac, make BMW rich,
Mercedes Benz,
Mercedes Benz, man,
Gucci.
white contractors. That's all that's going to happen, man. That's all that's going to happen until we get an understanding, economic understanding. You know what I'm saying? That Jeff Bezos ain't walking around in $150 pair of shoes,
No,
man.
hey, man, I think there needs to be a flood
Hmm.
to the point where, there's some things that need to be redone, some structures, give enough money to black people that whiteness ain't as white as it used to be. And you let the people kind of go on and do what they do, because you can't force people to learn. You
Hmm.
ain't gonna be able to force black people to learn financial literacy. And man, when you come from the bottom like that, you just want to look good. You so damn tired, just bury me fresh. You know what I mean? Like what? Like
Mm.
what?
Instead of just burning my ashes, so your
Well,
family don't
that's
have
what I'm
to pay
saying. Just
$13,000
bury
plus
me
for a
fresh. I
daggone
just I
funeral.
just
You
want
did
somebody to know that I had it going
that. I
on,
had a
Tay.
funeral. Yeah. That I had something. Yeah.
And so like I'm here telling you right now that it goes classism, tribalism, racism, just like I was telling you. And that black folks ain't really in solidarity until there's tragedy most of the time. I'm talking about as a whole.
Hmm.
You have black people who have their own functions just like white people. We only come together in tragedy and oppression, but most of the time as we walk around, we only link up with the people who have the same ideas and are aligned the way we are. And
Hmm.
we have classism and tribalism inside of that, with the fraternities, with sororities, with Masonic, Air Force. You got different type of black people doing different types of things, all the way to the ones who done sold out. Because everybody look at them like, bruh, like for real. And that's when everybody get real solid with their black solidarity, when somebody totally sells out. But damn, it's like you can't walk like that, bruh. Like, come on.
Yeah. Go ahead, Gabby.
I think that's hilarious, right? Because when we think about it, and we live in a society where we have to consume, right? You have to do something. But I think a lot of times, which I came to this realization in college, right, where you're buying these brands because you want to embody the marketing plan, right?
Hmm.
So you
Hmm.
want people to assign that marketing plan to you. And if you just took the time to become the marketing plan, like you can be BMW, right? Like you can do that. You can become Tiffany. You can become these brands, whatever they're marketing to you and saying that if when you put this on, you become this thing. You can literally become that thing. You don't have to have this item
Hmm.
um to be that. But I also think that a lot of a lot of our stuff could be fixed with therapy, because the back to what I was saying before, that disjointed nature of being an orphan child, right?
Hmm.
You're looking to fill a bottomless pit of
Yeah.
not belonging.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
like, look, get over it. You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm. Right,
get
right, right.
over it. Let's
Yeah, get over it.
let's deal with the trauma. Let's really start trying to break some of these generational curses, which I do think is happening now, right? I think that it may have started with that the 60s movement of reaffirming blackness, right?
Hmm.
Reaffirming your actual existence, then looking to Africa to rehome you, and them saying no,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And then you have to say, okay, well, I got to deal with where I'm at right now,
Mhm.
and I'm gonna go to therapy. I'm gonna deal with what I'm gonna break the generational curse that I know about, right? So let's
Mhm.
say you know about 2 generations of cursing, and you break that, and I
Mhm.
think that kind of changes the narrative of what we think is important, right?
Mhm.
Where if you can use capitalism to break generational curses, right? You can use capitalism so that you don't have to have a fish fry in order
Yeah.
to have
And know
a,
to have
a,
a funeral.
a funeral, right?
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
that's
GoFundMe.
a low hanging fruit,
Mhm.
and
Mm.
you can do that. So I do think that
That's what.
therapy
Mhm.
to heal these things, right? To heal being ripped from your homeland, right? Because that trauma is in us,
Mhm. Mhm. It is. It
right?
is. Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, or being the
Mhm.
person that ripped someone from their homeland, that trauma's in you too.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean? No matter what side that you're on, that trauma is in you and you're wearing it. And it's like, hey, do some therapy, try to
Mhm.
reparent yourself,
Mhm.
and it'll solve some of the things because capitalism really is about, well, I take it back. Consumerism, which is the fuel for capitalism,
Mm.
is about filling empty holes, right? It's
Yep.
not about, it's like how much stuff do you really need?
How much stuff?
You-
Oh, so I just bought a pair. I just got a pair of Jordans for like my birthday. Ain't gonna lie,
Mhm.
some number 12s, cool grays, right?
Mhm.
Now, I wanted a new pair of shoes. It was my birthday, I had $100 off. So I was like, cool. I can buy these expensive pair of shoes that have existed since I was a child. That makes sense since I know exactly where they come from. Da, da, da. But I bought them a certain color to go with a certain clothing line that I have.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
so I had this high fashion item in our urban community. These particular shoes are now high fashion. Correct?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Georgia high fashion. Yeah. You wear them with suits. You wear them. You wear them with anything.
Anywhere you want.
Anywhere you want.
Correct, right? So I have now had I have my clothing line and I wear them juxtaposition too. So as somebody's looking at it like, what is that? Da, 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 da.
I got
When
you.
you're wearing it with high fashion stuff like that, it catches. So using consumerism,
Mhm.
using capitalism to help catch the eye and then draw people to the actual goal, which is soul work.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
We have to start using our resources that we have. If the military doesn't show me one thing, it's like you got to work with what you got. And right now, you know what I mean? Like right now, I happen to have a mind that's different than what it used to be. And I happen to still, if I shaved all this off, I might look under 30, like 27, which means that I could potentially reach people that age that we can put them back on track that we didn't have the same track. Because these
Mhm.
are the people still having the kids young enough that needs to change the game right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think that was part of the. I know me and Calvin, we had a conversation about having a conversation about not saying generational curses. You know what I'm saying? Saying generational
Mhm.
trauma, so that we can deal with the actual issue. Because I think a lot of time, I don't think people are like you, Gabby, to where when we say generational curses, we put these things on outside entities. You know what I'm saying? Rather than dealing with the direct issue. You know what I'm saying? So I think when we say generational, trauma, which we have been through, you can
Mhm.
you can pinpoint that issue and understand that that our ancestors, a lot of them didn't have the tools, what I'm saying, to deal with, to
No,
deal
but
with
I and
traumas.
also to your point, that's a good
Hmm.
point. I didn't think about that, but I also think that like having gratitude for their survival,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
right? Because surviving surviving until you get to a place of peace in order to address the trauma
Hmm. Hmm.
is something to be grateful for too, right? And so it's like, wow, they didn't get it all right for
Hmm.
sure,
Hmm.
but the fact that they survived, which allowed you to be in this place right now,
Yeah.
is something to honor as well, right? Like I think
Right.
sometimes that survival nature or the ability to overcome is something to be um I guess really thought about as well, right? Where
Hmm.
it's like, well, thank you for giving me that fighting spirit, and then let me move
Resilience.
that fighting spirit away from survival to thriving, right?
Hmm.
And I don't know, because it's weird because I think I think a lot about. That's something I thought a lot about. This is actually hilarious. So you go see the Woman King, talks about the slave trade. The next week, there's a black Ariel, right?
Yeah.
The world goes crazy. Like,
Yeah.
a mermaid can't be black, whatever. And then someone makes a meme and it says, after you threw all of those Africans in the ocean, you thought there wasn't going to be a mermaid.
Yeah.
Right? And
Yeah.
so we
Yeah, man.
all, we all are, you know, we're all cognizant of the fact that what happened.
Hmm.
We all acknowledge it, right? And then we make a joke about it, right? Because that's what trauma does, right?
That's what
So,
black people do. We'll joke at it.
yeah,
Damn,
but that's,
we do.
that's rooted, all right? When you start,
It's rooted in trauma. It is. It
it's
is.
rooted in
It
trauma, right?
really is. It really is.
Yeah, it's
Truth
rooted in
and
trauma.
trauma.
But it
Truth
also,
and trauma.
Yeah, truth
it's
and
rooted
trauma.
in trauma, but it also lends ability to understand your history and
Hmm.
not be gaslit by somebody else.
That's
Because they
true.
was there too. They know they threw them, like,
Right.
they know they threw them.
Yeah, and that's why I say
No, no, no,
when
no,
you
no,
say
no. Hold on.
curses, what I mean, you put it on, you put these issues on the, onto other things. But and also like you're saying, where we are today, a lot of us, like that's you're not cursed. You know what I'm saying? Like, I got a pond outside my house. I can go fishing. You know what I'm saying? Like that's not a curse. Like I wasn't cursed. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, like you saying, Gabby, like it was a survival mentality that got me here. You know what I mean? Survival. One of my ancestors survived a 3-month boat trip. Survived possibly leaving South America or the Caribbean and coming to Charleston, South Carolina. You know what I'm saying? That's survival, man. That's survival. You know what I'm saying? But go ahead, brother Calvin.
Oh, what I was gonna say about white people, man, I found that they are so dumb. And I don't mean that in the way that like I'm attacking them like they're dumb. I mean like they are the system is purposely made the common white people so ignorant of information that
Hmm.
they don't know about what slavery really was. If you were to sit down with a white person that you know and go through Black history and some of that traumatic stuff, you will be surprised of everything that they don't know of, like
Well,
everything.
it's what they've been in, is what we've been indoctrinated with, right? Nobody tells the
Correct.
story of the. We don't properly tell the story of the Scots Irish that came to this country and they become oppressors. We don't properly tell the story of Scots Irish again coming to this country in the 18th century, along with Germans and Italians, and they becoming oppressors. But they started believing in this thing. You know what I mean? Like I mean, living in the South, there's a lot
Right.
of people who live in the South who didn't get here until after the Civil War, but they're wearing Confederate flags. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
They think
Right.
that the flag is history or and all this other
Right.
stuff. It's like, bro,
The daughters of the
You're like Donald
Confederate,
Trump's
like
grandfather. You didn't get here until 18. You know what I'm saying? That's like Donald Trump, talking about the Confederate flag and Confederate history. Like, sir, your grandfather was trying to go back to Bavaria. Like, he didn't want to stay here.
that's
Hmm.
what
You
I'm
dig
saying.
what I'm saying?
What-
But it's because we've been
Yeah.
indoctrinated with
Can I can
myth,
I
man.
can I give you an example?
Go ahead.
I'll give you. I did, and this is where I live because I don't claim to be anything but a person who works well with analogies.
Hmm.
The same way our young kids wear Jordans and they know nothing about the man.
Hmm.
There's a whole culture of people just inflating what Jordan is. Okay, to the point of disgust, right? Never seen him play.
Hmm.
Never seen them play at all. And that's just the same thing that goes along with the Confederates. Like, oh, they're just going along with what culture is because their daddies did it, their mamas did it, and this was what they did to be cool and fresh at that time. And it got passed down.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
is that am I off with that
No,
analogy?
no, no. And let me tell you, I had a barbershop conversation about Michael Jordan, right? And I said, hey, look, Michael Jordan, he's just overrated. Michael Jordan is not this person y'all make Michael Jordan to be. And of course, I was talking to some 20-something-year-olds, you know what I'm saying? Oh, no, no, Mike was this and Mike was that. I'm like, hey, sir, Mike should not have won as many MVPs as he had if it wasn't for these players and, these
Hmm.
things that happen. And Mike didn't play that good in a series. And they're arguing with me. And I'm like, I was the one that watched the game. I was there. You know what I'm saying?
I was,
You didn't watch it. You believe in
Mhm.
the legend. You believe in the
Right,
legend because
right.
again, we tell myths and we do tell myths in the black community as well. You know what I'm saying? We tell a lot of myths. We tell
yeah,
a
I
lot of
don't
myths.
even think that, I think that too, just like, we talk about that all the time. I told you like the hypotheticals, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like you when we think about greatness or we think about any of those things, they're not rooted in everyone being on the same factual plane, right? So was Jordan great? Yes. Is he the greatest basketball player to ever live? I don't think
No.
so. Um, and then if you compare to, but you have to really believe too to bring it back is that he existed in that time, right? And in
Right.
that time, he did. And if you look at a Wilt Chamberlain, right? Wilt Chamberlain did what he did in that time
At
with
that time.
the tools that were available to him at that time, right? The
Right.
technology. If you look, well, my favorite person is LeBron, right? But if you look at a LeBron, right? LeBron is doing what he can do with the technology that's available right now, or just even when you think of nutrition and all that kind of thing, like there's some crazy things happening for athletes now that was not thought of then, right? So
Yeah.
I try to also think about that when I think about our community, right? Our community is existing, doing the best we can with the information we have now.
Right. Right.
Um, and in the time that we're living now, I was listening the other day. I don't remember what I was listening to. It was a podcast, and it talked about the Black Panther Party, right? And one of the things that I did not know is that they went and threatened Black stars.
Yeah.
So I didn't realize that. Like I knew the other side, but I didn't realize that even within our own community, they were agitating our community as well, right? And it's like, okay, well, right now we are always like, why isn't Jay-Z fighting about blah blah blah? Right? But back then it was, why isn't James Brown doing anything? Right?
Right. 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 And they would show up on the doorstep like, "Hey, look, you ain't gonna play
Well,
another concert.
exactly.
You ain't gonna play another
Exactly.
concert." Yeah.
Exactly. So I think that we're doing what we can with what we have, and then as a community, I do think it's important to realize that the power lies in the people, right? And it's never the people who are at the top, because the people at the top, much like when we saw in the movie, like the king is benefiting from the power structure. No matter what he says, no matter if he says, "Oh, I just feel so bad about it," no, you don't, right? Because you were so happy
Yeah.
when in your Chester Trez. You know what I mean? You are so happy um, to do what you can to keep whatever little bits of power that they give you. And so I think that's something that we really have to think about too, is that the power is not going to come from the powerful,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because the powerful do not
Mm.
want, they don't want a
They
redistribution.
don't. They
Like,
don't
why
want.
would
They don't want to change. You know what I'm saying? And I try to tell people with this when when people bring up Ice Cube. Well, Ice Cube had a platinum plan. No, he didn't. Ice Cube did not have a platinum plan. There's no
mm-mm.
benefit for him. You know what I'm saying? There's no benefit for Ice Cube. You know what I'm saying? To even put that out there. You
Have
know,
a platinum what?
he had he had to, like, he came up with this supposed platinum plan right before the 2020 election, and really
Oh,
all
okay.
it was just these ideals of things to do. Some of it was good, right? Some of it was good, but some of it was already in work, like Juneteenth holiday and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, if you dig into it, you know that the reason he put that out was because Steve Bannon, Ice Cube knew Steve Bannon's friend, a friend of Steve Bannon, and that friend helped Ice Cube keep his 3-on-3 league afloat.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then his friend was like, "Hey, I'm calling in a favor." You know
Man,
what I'm
wash
saying?
his hands.
That's it, man. You know what I'm saying? There's no real, like I mean, I think that people can do, can people those folks with power, they can actually do something, but it's gonna cost them money. That's why people are like, well, why don't all the black stars get together and create this black utopia? You know what I'm saying? There has to be some benefit from them. You know what I'm saying? Benefit is so you're not.
Well,
Mm,
I think too, though, that we have to really understand at a point that they are just tastemakers, but the
Mm-hmm.
work is always going to be the people's work,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right? So even if you get a black star to, if you take a Beyonce, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. I love Beyonce. I'm a Beyonce fan. I go to all the concerts. I don't have a problem with
You made
Beyonce.
your coworkers listen to Beyonce while you get fed on
Oh,
breakfast.
yes. Yes, I did. I had a party and I made grown men come to the party. I don't care, right?
Yeah.
But when you think about that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she's shouting out Tamika Mallory,
Mm-hmm.
and Tamika's doing the people's work,
Doing the people's work.
right? I believe, and she's sacrificing a lot to do the people's work, right? As a human, but as her fame rose, right? Her personal fame, she became less effective as well.
She became a target.
Yeah, and
That
so
was who
that
they targeted her when it came to the women's march. They were like,
exactly,
we're gonna go after Tamika Mallory. We're not gonna go after her white adjacent allies. We're gonna go after
exactly.
her because Tamika Mallory speaks for the black community or speaks to the black community, and that's what they did.
Yeah, and that's what they did. But I also think that like she wasn't prepared for that either, right?
Right.
So
Mm-hmm.
she didn't have a preparation for that because she also wants to be a star.
Yep.
So it's like you're gonna have to shun fame in order to be effective because I promise you it's not going to be effective. Like stardom in itself makes you a target and makes you ineffective. And
Mm-hmm.
you can't do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I'm like, it's always going to be up to the people. It's always going to be maybe the ideas originate um at a higher level, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But the implementation is always going to be the people, and you got to get buy-in,
Mm-hmm.
right, from common people. Like you got to get buy-in.
That's it. That's true. That's facts. Yeah, that's facts. And that's how people think that the civil rights movement was all these people. It really wasn't. It was like a small conglomerate. I mean, maybe somewhere close to 100,000 people, like nationally, like who's actually out there doing the work, and showing up and things of that nature. But yeah, you do
But
gotta
you know
get
what? I
buy-in.
think I brought this up. I went to a diversity and equity dinner at the AUC maybe last weekend before, but we were talking about this, and I was at a table with kids, right, because they were in college, and they were talking about marching and blah
Mm,
blah blah. And I said, well, in Atlanta there was a during 2020 there was like huge marches, and
mm-hmm,
I guess it was all over the country.
mm-hmm.
And I was like, I realized that my place in the movement has changed,
Yeah.
right? So my place used to be the marcher. My place used to be the organizer. But now my place is to be a financial
A
backer,
supporter,
right?
right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm,
And it's
mm-hmm,
like, well, shoot, let me go get these babies out of jail on Sunday morning.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
You know,
mm-hmm. Yeah, 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 yeah. Mm-hmm.
you know,
Let me
and
donate
and
money over here. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, let me donate money over there. And to be honest, it's not even a fact of, people I think a lot of times think of like, oh well, you got a place in society now, so you can't fight. But that's not it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It's been it's been 30 years. I'm tired.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
For a lot of us,
Like
yeah. A lot
it's
of us
like,
be tired.
you know what? I am exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
Please help. And
Yeah.
so I think that that's something too where we think about. Like I was talking to my neighbors, and they were part of turning Atlanta black, right? Like they're all eight,
Mm-hmm.
and so they talk about it, and they're like, "We did this. This is the things that we did."
Man, I would love to
And
hear that. I
oh my
think a
gosh,
lot
it's
of
so
people.
dope.
I think a lot of black people need to hear that, man. Because
Yeah, they're really, really.
they just hear about the
They're,
story about Maynard Jackson, but it goes well beyond Maynard Jackson.
oh, it's well beyond. So, Keisha and Kasim, which are our last two mayors,
Mm-hmm.
grew up on my street, the
Mm-hmm.
street I live on. And my neighbor was in a band with their dads. So their dads were in bands,
Mm-hmm.
right? They were in a jazz band, and um, Atlanta's black elite came up with this plan, right? It was like, look, we're gonna this is what we're gonna do.
Mm-hmm.
and they implemented the plan, right? And they put on their money toward it. Like there was real planning toward creating a Mecca, right? For black educated people. And then it was like, okay, that they grew out of that to be, working class black, to be this regular black people, and we can have a place where we can be 100% us, right? And obviously, it came out of the civil rights movement and all that, but it almost got crushed after the civil rights movement.
Yeah, yeah,
Like there was a gutting
yeah,
of the black middle class
yeah, man.
during that time.
It's the white lash. There's always,
Oh
always,
yeah, for sure.
always, always, always.
Always.
You know,
So
we're going into the 40th
that's
year of Ronald Reagan. So, you know.
oh my goodness, it's so crazy. And or when we think about seriously to really think about our community as being a country within a country, and that we are fighting against forces that specialize in state making, right, and state
Right.
breaking. So sometimes I think that we are super hard on ourselves when it's like whole ass countries with resources and access to their own capital, their own whatever, can't fight off United States power.
Right, 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 right.
Black America is doing a pretty good job.
That's true. That's true, though. I mean, that's true. I mean, and I think that, that message needs to get out there. You know what I'm saying? We are doing pretty good. You know what I'm saying? Trying to fight and create at the same time. And I always say that, with black people, man, we move from trying to get the barbershop babble to talk about, to get them to understand that, we move from protest to politics whenever politics to power. And that's what Martin Luther King was trying to get us to do. And another black leaders who was talking about economics at the time, trying to get black people to understand. And when Jesse Jackson come up with Operation Push, he was trying to get black people to understand, like, look, it is the economics. You got to affect the economics. We have to build. We have to build. We have to build. And that's what Maynard Jackson understood when he built
Yeah,
when that airport was being built. He's like, oh no, y'all will not build this unless this many
exactly.
black people are attached to it. You know what
And
I'm
I,
saying?
I, I think too, though, that like as black people, we really have to start to think about there's only two currencies in the world, right? It's time and money.
Yep, that's it.
And the whole point of getting money is to buy time. So
Right.
time is the most valuable resource.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not consumer thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Unless those consumer things save you time.
Mm-hmm.
And that that concept is hard, right? It's kind of hard because the whole world's telling you to consume, consume.
To
But it's
consume,
like,
consume, consume. Yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah, but it's
Mm-hmm.
like you can consume things that save you time and it'll bring you joy,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you really are getting real currency. Real currency is being able to do whatever you want to do whenever you want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And if it doesn't matter if you are, a millionaire and you still got to show up somewhere. It's like, dang, I don't want to.
Yeah.
Well, then you shouldn't have to. You should be able to say, not today.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, and that's why I make the last comment. We'll wrap up. This is why if you notice, people notice that you get seeing all these articles out there. How they're like talking about quiet quitting, right?
Mhm.
How bad talking about how bad it is, and also what were they talking about during the pandemic when people were the silent what do they call them people who are like, yeah, I'm not working this minimum wage job no more, you know.
Oh, and they never show back
Yeah,
up.
yeah, they just never showed up. You know what I'm saying? They out here like, oh, I got time to go find another job that pays better. And I forget what they were calling it, but they're trying to discourage all these people from making more money to get more time. You know what I'm saying?
Well, and I think that was. Oh, we have to wrap up, but I think that was the best thing about the pandemic. Like, so I really believe in like astrology and whatever, right? And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
Prince tried to tell y'all it's the year of Aquarius, right? And so it's like we all needed that reset to
Mm-hmm.
understand what was more important, right? With
Mhm.
time with our families,
Right.
um, and really getting to know our children, right?
Mhm.
Because
Mhm.
it was a bunch of people that didn't like, I'm with a lot of moms all the time. And a lot of people were like, I can't to being with my kids. And I'm like, wow, I really enjoy being with my child, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
But myself, oh, because I knew my child before the pandemic. Like
Right.
I was not surprised
Right.
about anything, right? One thing that I was surprised about, because we didn't watch TV before the pandemic. We were not a screen time family.
Mhm.
And then during the pandemic, I got a TV. I was like, look, I can't do 20 hours. And it was interesting to see his body change and his
Mm.
brain change at the same time, right? My son had always been really lean and like kind of inquisitive and da-da. And I'm like, wow, I'm seeing real time the effects of
Oh,
TV,
TV. Yeah. Mhm.
right? It's like it
Mhm.
was kind of weird, but I do
Yeah.
think that we all needed that reset, um, and everybody is trying to get back to some semblance of that, right? So it's like, how do I get back to having that much time? Okay, if I work from home, then I can have some of my time back.
Yeah.
If I sell these things, then I don't need that much money, and you know what I mean? I don't have to
Mhm.
show up to this.
Yeah, like look, when I
uh,
look, we were talking about teleworking, and I realized how much time I lost, right? Because I used to take care of like housework stuff during the week, when I can during my telework, time, and
Mhm.
it just piled up over the weekend, and I was like, oh my god,
Exactly.
like oh man, but part of me was like, I'm never working a job that doesn't offer telework. I'm just not going to.
And the funny part, I'm in construction, right?
Yeah.
And we're building offices. Like
Mm-hmm.
they want you back, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I tell my friends, I'm like, they're spending a lot of money
To get people back in.
to get people back. I don't know what they're gonna do.
I don't
I
know
have
what they're
no
gonna do.
idea
Yeah.
what the end game is.
Yeah.
But it's like
I don't know
they
what
want
you.
y'all back.
Yeah, I don't know what they're gonna do when people gonna be like, nope.
Yeah, exactly. Like I don't care how much money you spend, I ain't coming back.
Yeah, ain't coming back. Ain't coming back. Well, I appreciate you, cuz, for coming on.
No
Having
problem.
a chat, and as always, it's good. Good conversation, and appreciate brother Calvin for coming on. As we were talking about Woman King and a lot of intersectionality and bringing it, bringing the past forward and also adding some education to the edutainment of the film. And it's a great film. I hope people go out there and see it. Go see it twice because it really is a great showing powerful women, powerful dark skin, beautiful brown skin black women or African women, black women. So it was a great film. Any last words for you, Gabby?
No, it was great. It was a great conversation. I definitely want to deep dive on Christianity and the
Mm.
divine feminine. That's interesting. I'm gonna try to look into that.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Let me know what you find. I think it's in there. I got a few books on, but my books on Christianity is all about black people. It's all about white folk,
Not that.
white folk,
Not that. Yeah.
white folk burning crosses. You know what I'm saying? That's my. All right, man. Hey,
All right.
thank you guys for tuning in. I appreciate you. All right, man.
Have,
We out. Okay.
have a good night. Bye bye.